In the skies over Britain, one aircraft came to define courage, precision, and innovation. From desperate dogfights over the Channel to the final roar of victory, the Supermarine Spitfire proved that design brilliance and human resolve could change the course of history. The Supermarine Spitfire became the symbol of Britain's survival in 1940. Its shape and sound defined the air war over Europe. This aircraft was not designed for conquest, but to defend a nation facing invasion. By the mid-1930s, aviation was changing faster than governments could plan. Metal replaced fabric. Speeds that once seemed impossible were now common. Britain needed a fighter able to meet modern threats. Engineer R.J. Mitchell had already built record-setting racing seaplanes for the Schneider Trophy. He took those lessons and designed a compact, low-drag machine built for speed and control. The result was the Spitfire. Its elliptical wing was the key. The shape spread lift evenly and reduced drag across the span. It looked elegant, but was purely functional. The wing carried 8.303 Browning machine guns, each synchronized to deliver concentrated fire in the turn. When the prototype first flew in 1936, test pilots said it felt alive. The Air Ministry immediately ordered production. In 1940, with France fallen and invasion expected, the Spitfire faced its test. The Luftwaffe outnumbered the Royal Air Force. Two British fighters stood ready, the sturdy Hawker Hurricane and the faster Spitfire. Hurricanes struck the bombers. Spitfires met the escorting fighters. On paper, the German Bf-109 climbed a little faster, but air combat rarely follows paper figures. The Spitfire's tighter turning circle let British pilots bring their guns on target first. Its controls responded instantly, almost as if the aircraft anticipated the pilot's hand. Power came from the Rolls-Royce Merlin II, a 27-liter V12 producing more than 1,000 horsepower. Top speed exceeded 350 miles per hour, yet the aircraft could still float in a gentle turn without stalling. The Merlin's smooth roar became the soundtrack of Britain's defense. Each Spitfire took roughly 13,000 hours to build. Women formed much of the factory workforce, assembling frames and wings while men fought overseas. Every rivet represented shared effort across the nation. By September 1940, Britain was exhausted. Fuel was short, and experienced pilots were few, yet the Luftwaffe never gained control of the sky. Ground radar warned of incoming raids, but victory in the air depended on the Spitfire's performance. Its speed and maneuverability allowed the RAF to survive. When Germany canceled invasion plans, the balance of the war shifted. The Spitfire had proved that engineering excellence and discipline could stop a larger force. It wasn't superstition or luck. It was design, teamwork, and courage fused into one machine. The Battle of Britain ended, but the aircraft's story had only begun. What followed was continuous evolution: more power, heavier weapons, longer range. Each new version showed how far one idea could grow when pushed by necessity. The Battle of Britain proved the Spitfire's design worked, but victory in 1940 was only the beginning. The Luftwaffe introduced faster aircraft, and the Spitfire needed to evolve constantly to keep pace. Early models used the Merlin II engine with a fixed-pitch propeller. Engineers soon fitted a constant speed propeller that allowed better climb and acceleration. Later versions received the two-stage supercharged Merlin 45 and 61 engines, pushing top speed past 400 miles per hour. The Mk5 became the most produced version of the war, operating from Europe to the Mediterranean and North Africa. The airframe adapted quickly. Designers strengthened wings, improved cooling, and refined the gun layout. The original 8 rifle-caliber guns were replaced with a mix of 50-caliber machine guns and 20mm Hispano cannon for heavier firepower. Some models even carried bombs beneath the wings, turning the Spitfire into a light fighter bomber without losing agility. In late 1941, the German FW-190 appeared over France. Faster and deadlier than anything the RAF had, it forced immediate innovation. Within months, the Spitfire Mark IX emerged, a combination of the classic airframe and a new Merlin 61 engine with a two-stage supercharger. It restored balance in speed and climb, proving the design could adapt faster than the enemy expected. Beyond Europe, the Spitfire's legend grew worldwide. Allied nations received aircraft through Lend-Lease and direct transfer. Polish and Czech pilots who escaped, occupied Europe, joined RAF squadrons, and earned reputations for skill and determination. Canada, Australia, and New Zealand formed their own units. For these airmen, the Spitfire symbolized freedom regained through flight. In the Mediterranean, the aircraft became vital. Malta, a small island under constant siege, relied on the Spitfire for survival. In 1942, new Spitfires arrived by aircraft carrier, launching from HMS Eagle and USS Wasp. These missions, codenamed Calendar and Bowery, reinforced the island's defense. Despite relentless attacks, Malta held the skies, ensuring Allied control over Mediterranean supply lines. North Africa tested the Spitfire's limits. Dust filters were fitted, paint changed to desert camouflage, and fuel capacity increased with drop tanks. Even in the thin, hot air, the Spitfire kept its reputation for precision and stability. Pilots valued its responsiveness during low-level combat over the sand, where speed and control meant survival. Through 1942 and 1943, Spitfires operated across every major front. They escorted bombers, defended convoys, and performed low-level strikes on airfields and railways. Variants specialized for different altitudes: clipped wing models for low-altitude speed, extended wings for high-altitude interception, and stripped-down reconnaissance types equipped with cameras instead of guns. By 1943, the Spitfire was a veteran, yet still improving. It had grown stronger and faster without losing its graceful handling. Few aircraft in history managed such longevity in combat while staying competitive. It was proof that its designer, R.J. Mitchell, had created not just a fighter, but a framework for continuous innovation. By 1943, the Spitfire had fought across Europe, North Africa, and the Mediterranean, but the design still had room to grow. Rolls-Royce engineers developed a new engine to push the limits further: the Griffon. Larger and heavier than the Merlin, it delivered more than 2,000 horsepower and transformed the aircraft's performance. To handle the added torque, the propeller spun in the opposite direction to earlier models. The nose grew longer and the structure stronger, yet the aircraft kept its trademark balance. The new Griffon marks could climb faster, accelerate harder, and reach over 440 miles per hour without losing the light feel pilots loved. The first Griffon-powered version, the Mark 12, entered service in 1943 and quickly met the FW-190 in coastal patrols over Britain. Later, the Mk-14 and PR-19 took that design to new heights, literally. These marks intercepted high-altitude reconnaissance planes and even the V-1 flying bombs that terrorized London. The extra power let the Spitfire chase targets that piston engines had once been too slow to reach. As 1944 approached, the Spitfire joined preparations for Operation Overlord, the Allied invasion of Normandy. Squadrons equipped with late Merlin and early Griffon versions covered the beaches on D-Day, June 6, 1944. They provided air superiority, bombed bridges and supply lines, and attacked advancing columns. Amid thousands of aircraft over France, the Spitfire's silhouette remained instantly recognizable. The aircraft's range was extended with drop tanks, allowing longer patrols deep into enemy territory. Fighter-bomber models carried small bombs for tactical strikes ahead of Allied ground troops. At low altitude, the Spitfire's quick roll rate and acceleration made it hard to hit and perfect for hit-and-run attacks. While the Spitfire ruled over land, a naval derivative, the Seafire, brought its name to sea. It gained an arrestor hook, strengthened landing gear, and folding wings for carrier operations. Landing on a moving deck demanded finesse. Many were damaged in hard landings. But in the air, the Seafire was pure Spitfire. Agile, balanced, and fast. It served during the Salerno landings and later in the Pacific, giving the Royal Navy a true fleet interceptor. In the cockpit, new technology appeared. The gyro-computing gun sight helped pilots lead targets accurately in turning fights, increasing hit rates dramatically. Oxygen systems, cockpit heating, and radios improved reliability for long or high-altitude sorties. By early 1945, the Spitfire had evolved far beyond its 1936 prototype, yet the essence was unchanged. The same elliptical wing, the same harmony of lift and control. Each new version proved how flexible and forward-thinking the original design had been. As Allied forces crossed the Rhine and advanced into Germany, Spitfires flew reconnaissance and ground attack missions until the war's final weeks. Even with jets like the Me-262 appearing, the piston-powered Spitfire remained relevant, a last, brilliant expression of the propeller-driven fighter. When the guns fell silent in 1945, the Spitfire's work was not done. Production continued as new squadrons overseas awaited their aircraft. 20 major marks had already been built, yet engineers kept refining the design because the balance of lift, power, and control was still unmatched. In the months after victory, reconnaissance variants flew long-range photo missions over occupied Europe and the Far East. The PR-19, unarmed but fitted with cameras, soared above 40,000 feet. These missions continued into the early Cold War, mapping post-war terrain and gathering intelligence long before spy planes or satellites existed. Across the world, nations adopted the Spitfire as their first modern combat aircraft. Belgium, the Netherlands, Norway, Denmark, Greece, and Italy rebuilt their air forces with ex-RAF machines. In Asia, India and Pakistan inherited entire squadrons when they became independent in 1947. In the Middle East, both Egypt and Israel flew Spitfires, sometimes even against each other. Australia and New Zealand used theirs for defense and training as the jet age dawned. At home, new jet fighters such as the Gloucester Meteor replaced the Spitfire on the front line, yet a handful remained as trainers and research aircraft. The final RAF Spitfires flew reconnaissance missions in 1954, almost 20 years after the prototype's first flight. Although technology had moved on, the aircraft's design remained a study in aerodynamic efficiency. The thin elliptical wing gave ideal lift distribution, while the powerful Merlin and Griffin engines provided unmatched climb rates for piston fighters. Test pilots transitioning to early jets often said the Spitfire had taught them energy management and respect for airflow, lessons still used today. Hundreds of airframes were scrapped after the war, but others survived through foresight and passion. Museums and private owners began restoring them in the 1950s and 1960s. Restoration was demanding. Original jigs and parts were scarce, so engineers had to recreate components from drawings or reverse engineer them from surviving pieces. A single rebuild could take years, but each success returned a living piece of history to the sky. In 1957, the Royal Air Force founded the Battle of Britain Memorial Flight to preserve a few airworthy examples. Their flypasts at national events became moments of reflection and pride. When a Spitfire passes overhead today, the distinctive note of its Merlin or Griffin still makes people stop and look up. By the 1970s, historians and engineers were studying the Spitfire again, not as nostalgia, but as a masterclass in design. They found that its low drag, stability, and light control forces embodied principles still valuable in modern aircraft. The Spitfire proved that agility and stability could coexist, a lesson rediscovered with every new generation of fighters. The aircraft's survival owes as much to emotion as to engineering. It became a symbol of unity and skill, of a nation that refused to surrender. For later generations, it stood for craftsmanship under pressure, and the belief that dedication and precision could still decide the outcome of history. Decades after the last RAF squadron stood down, the Spitfire still flies. Restored aircraft appear at airshows across Britain, Europe, and the Commonwealth. Each has its own personality. No two sound the same. The Rolls-Royce Merlin carries a note that cuts through jet noise, turning every head skyward. Modern pilots describe the same sensations their predecessors did 80 years ago. The controls are light, the view is wide, and the response is instant. The aircraft seems to anticipate intent rather than follow orders. Technology has advanced far beyond it, yet few machines create such an immediate connection between pilot and sky. Engineers continue to study the Spitfire for what it teaches about aerodynamic harmony. Its elliptical wing remains a textbook example of efficiency, spreading lift evenly from root to tip. The design challenges that once frustrated factory workers now inspire admiration, each curve calculated by hand, long before computers. Museums and education programs use the Spitfire to teach science and history together. Students see not only a warplane but proof that skill, teamwork, and purpose can overcome impossible odds. Veterans who built or flew the aircraft describe a unity that crossed every barrier of age and background. Thousands of people working toward one goal, one defense, one machine. For today's audiences, the Spitfire bridges generations. To older viewers, it is living memory. To younger ones, it's proof that craftsmanship can outlast fashion. The aircraft connects art to engineering, emotion to logic. Its beauty is not decoration but the result of perfect function. When a restored Spitfire climbs into sunlight and the engine note rises from growl to song, it reminds us of courage expressed through technology, of invention born from necessity, and of how design can shape destiny. More than 20,000 were built. Fewer than 100 still fly. Each one carries its lineage of pilots and engineers, from wartime crews to modern restorers. Keeping them airborne demands skill and devotion, but those who do it believe they are preserving more than metal. They're preserving meaning. The world has long since moved on from propellers and piston engines, yet the Spitfire endures because it represents something constant. That precision and purpose can change the world. Its shape reminds us that form and function, when perfectly balanced, can create something timeless. The Spitfire began as a desperate answer to a looming threat and became an emblem of resilience. It turned engineering into art, and art into defense. It remains a voice from an age when freedom itself hung in the balance, and a reminder that ingenuity, courage, and unity can still lift us above the storm. I hope you have really enjoyed this story on the amazing submarine Spitfire. Hopefully you like, subscribe, and turn on post notifications so you get notified when I upload more storytellings on the real history of the aviation world.